Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura and today I am doing a shelf wrap-up. So basically I'm going to talk about the books that I have read from one of my shelf picks. This is from shelf number 3. It was about 2 months or so ago that I ended up choosing this shelf, and this is part of a project that my sister and I are doing with each other where we are about every month selecting a number from a jar. That number corresponds to a shelf in this room, and we are filming a video to show you what we have in our collection. It's sort of like a very slow collection tour, but as well as this is the shelf that we are going to concentrate on reading over the next month and read as many titles as we're interested in or have time for during that month. I have a few here that I have read from shelf 3. I have already been reading from shelf 40, I think was the next one, and I'm nearly done and ready to talk about shelf 40, but I gotta get back and talk about shelf 3 because I've already forgotten a lot about what some of these titles are, so I really want to wrap this up now before I completely forget what I have read. The first title that I'm going to talk about is one of the longer things that I've read, and it's probably my favorite thing that I did read from this shelf for this challenge, and that would happen to be Ajin Demi-Human. I read volumes 1 through 8. We do have volume 9 now because I ended up finding it at a second-hand sale for really cheap, which was great, but we haven't gone further to pick up. I think there's a couple more volumes, at least one more volume that is currently out, and it's just a really enjoyable title, and I really had fun reading it. It is basically the story about humanity, and there's sort of like a new evolution, I guess. Some people are being born immortal, that nothing can kill them, and it is sort of just in the early stages, and so these people are being considered freaks or monsters and are being captured. There's only a handful that are known. They're being captured by some organization, and then of course experiments being put on them. This is basically the story about one boy in particular who discovers that he is an Ajin, and how he reacts and how he sort of has to kind of go on the run to get away from this organization, and he runs into some other people who happen to be Ajin. It's definitely more than that, and I don't want to get too much into it because I think it can get quite spoilery if I talk about it too much, but I really enjoyed this title. One thing in particular that I really liked about this story is just sort of the nebulous definitions of good and evil, and you know, normally you have very kind of strict lines between what is good and what is evil, and you know who you're supposed to root for, and you know, like, you know, whose team you're supposed to be on. This one you can't really tell, and I think it's a little bit more true to life too, and it feels more real for something that's so fantastical. It's really enjoyable in that way. As I was reading it, I felt like there was a lot of mystery to it, and as, you know, different mysteries are being solved or revealed, I feel like there's more mystery being piled on, so there's so many layers. I do feel like I know how it's going to end. I'm not going to say that because it is spoilery, but I have a pretty good idea, at least for myself, how I think this is going to end, but I have no idea how it's going to get there, and I have no idea, at least at the point in volume 8 where I'm at in the middle of this big explosive war between a number of different groups. I don't know how that's going to get resolved. I have no idea how they're going to get out of that. So it's really exciting, it's really thought-provoking, and I really enjoyed reading this, and I can't wait to read more of it. If you are interested in reading more about my thoughts, though, I do have actually a review on my blog about it, so I will link that up down below if you're interested. But definitely, if you're not opposed to reading something that can be quite gory and grotesque, I would say give this one a shot because it's fantastic. I read volume 1 of I Love You by Ken Akamatsu. Ken Akamatsu is the author of 2 really popular harem series, Love Hina and that other one. Yeah, I have it. It's behind my light here and I can't see what it is, and I can't remember off the top of my head because I don't care for harem. I ended up getting this one at a secondhand sale, so I don't it wasn't intentional that I would have bought something by Ken Akamatsu, whose other titles I don't particularly care for. So this is something that's been sitting in our collection. I don't even know if it's mine or my sister's. It's in our book somewhere. Who owns it? I think this story is actually quite similar to Video Girl I by Masakazu Katsura. This one is a story about a boy who's kind of a super loser, and he's on his computer, and he's developing, I think, software, like girlfriend software, and something happens and she becomes real, and so ends up being this sort of computer live computer program, and it's comedy. It's Ken Akamatsu style comedy. It is definitely very shonen comedy. It was quite funny. I thought it was funny. I'm not particularly interested in reading more of it. If I see more at a secondhand sale for $2, fine, I'll add to my collection, but this isn't something I'm going to actively go out and collect. What was interesting or different about this one in particular is that the girl, while she is sort of a real manifested thing, she still knows, and and he also knows that she's a computer program, and so she does, she is able to do things like connect to the Matrix or whatever it's called, and download software so that she can become good at like sports, or she can, you know, change her clothes, and I thought that was actually quite fun and interesting of an idea. So I enjoyed it on that respect. If you like Ken Akamatsu's other titles, you probably will like this. It was okay. Another title that we'd gotten at a second-hand sale is 07 Ghost. This one is by Yuki Amemiya and Yukino Ichihara. I read volumes 1 through 3, which is all we have of this particular title. I'm not going to be able to explain very much what this story is about, because the one thing that I recall most distinctly is that I was lost. There was so much information just being thrown at you, and it wasn't being kind of handled in a very natural way. Everything had to be built from scratch. The entire world is being built from scratch, and it doesn't allow for very natural storytelling. So the mythos and the whole, the way the characters are interacting, and it starts out in the midst of battle. You start out with the angst rather than finding out where that is coming from. So basically this is a story about, I think, a world where, sort of a post-apocalyptic type world, a boy discovers that he has some power or something. He escapes from that world and ends up at a cathedral, sort of, that have some powers. I think it's a little bit like, you know, he gets sanctuary at this cathedral because the people in this city or society that he was living in are now after him. And then you kind of start to learn that there's sort of, I think, 7 ghosts or 7 pillars of this cathedral type community or Catholic type community who have been, I don't remember if they punish the world in the past or if they protect the world. I can't remember. And the boy himself, of course, is the chosen one in this whole whatever's going to happen to the world in the future. You can tell from that explanation that I don't remember this story almost at all, and as I was going through it, I was so bored. This is josei manga. I don't know if that has altered the way that this story is told at all. It does feel quite heavy and dense, but not necessarily in a good way, and I was kind of interested in picking this up because a lot of people were saying how much they enjoyed this. I don't know, maybe it's that they enjoyed the anime, but I don't particularly like stories that are set in Western religious iconography. I think it's interesting, but I don't think it's ever handled right. So this one it was off to begin with, and there's so much information dumping in this. And it's just really poor world building in my opinion, so I didn't particularly like this at all. I think I gave them all 1 star out of 5. And then the last thing that I read off of shelf number 3 is Alice 19th. I read volumes 1 through 7. I do have a full review for Alice 19th as well on my blog, so that also will be linked below. So this story is about Alice. You can tell pretty much from the first page that this is going to be heavily inspired by Alice in Wonderland. So there's a lot of motifs and a lot of ideas that are taken from Alice in Wonderland and are put into this. It also feels very much like other titles by Yuu Watase. Her most famous titles, Fushigi Yugi and Ayashi no Seras, plus Imadoki. If you combine all of those together, this is the story that you get. So it has the same character designs, the same costume designs, the same plot twists, the same just sort of ideas around it. And then the other thing that's really nice about this is that in this one, thankfully, Viz was able to keep and translate the author notes that were included in the original publication. Not a lot of publishers actually do keep that in, which is such a shame because I miss them so much when they're not there. But this one in particular was great because Yuu Watase talks about this story and how it was influenced or inspired by the 9/11 attacks. That the theme of this story is the power of words and how they can evoke a message of peace. And so that's what this particular story is about. And so this is really, I haven't really gotten into the story at all. This is a story about Alice and her sister. Alice is the owner and user of the Lotus Words, and when she and her sister get in a fight, she tells her sister to go away, and because of the power of her words, literally sends her sister into the darkness. So now she and this rabbit are on a mission, basically, to develop her ability with the Lotus Words, and she is on the mission, of course, to bring her sister back out of the darkness. It is delightful. It's wonderful, and I really enjoy this story. It's weird, it's quirky, but that is Yuu Watase's signature style, and I really, really enjoy reading this one. So that's it for this particular shelf. I didn't read as much as I would like, but I am busy, like I've said many times, and I am just sort of trying to not get too caught up in the numbers and just read what I can when I can. And I am still, getting through a decent amount of manga this year so far. At any rate, if you've read any of these titles, would love to know what your thoughts are on any of them. And anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.